So a quick overview of the survey that everyone took, so as to have a refresh. There were basically 8 large categories that all the survey takers, like from the qualitative surveys, we read every single one. Thank you very much. A lot of them were really good comments. So we kind of categorized them into 8 big categories: location, equipment/inclusive design, shade and trees, pathway access, safety and fencing, and additional amenities such as totes, benches, and shelters. And then following last 3 will be age-appropriate equipment, surfacing, as well as a potential splash pad. So right now we're mainly focusing on a playground, so splash pad maybe for future years. So, we took into account different categories that were mentioned, and also into account the budget that we have for this playground project to see what is possible in terms of meeting everyone in the middle, hopefully. So we'll learn more later in the playground designs. And then the quantitative responses, the age groups that were largely visiting the playground are the top 3 over there. Mode of transportation, thought it was interesting to know. Most people by foot. So hopefully you live close by or you love walking from wherever you come from. And then as well as cars. So taking that into account is important because we have to take into account like where you park when you come to the playground, making sure that there's ADA accessible parking for those who are coming to this inclusive playground. And right now, the amount of joy, number 3, hopefully it brings you to number 5. That's the goal. Existing equipment is at number 1, which is, okay, that's why we're doing this project, right? So hopefully eventually it goes up the ranks. And that's it for the survey. Any questions, or do you feel like I missed out any categories? Zoom in person. So Brian is going to go into the playground designs, and as usual, Zoom people, you can share with me any comments on the chat.
All right. Thanks, Z. Yeah, so we were able to sort of take all that information, give it over to Ben and his team. In addition to the other questions that we asked, we didn't just give a quick update on it, sort of help them kind of put together a plan. But again, the experts do this over and over and over. Know all the equipment, all the different skill sets. They can really turn sort of comments into design products. But for those of you who need a quick visual to get out of the room, our existing playground, again, a lot of the issues with it. Accessibility, certainly a major issue. No pathways currently going to it. That's very much below the standards for even basic ADA accessibility, let alone universal access. But we've got our 3 wonderful picnic tables. We've got our 2 bays of slides with the nice puddles underneath them. Really exciting 2 to 5-year-old equipment. And then we've got our 5 to 12-year-old equipment. So again, long overdue, desperately needed, identified in our 5-year planning process as a priority project. So basically with the information that we had, one of the big things was the location of the playground, inaccessible, baking in the hot sun. So one of the sort of first things that we thought about was relocating the playground closer to the existing trees. Again, not underneath the trees, but this being the south side, that shade all day long is going to be cast to the north. It'll also wrap around and it'll cast in the afternoon. So really from a physical relocation, just to start with, thinking a lot about making this a more pleasant place to be. But also the big moves were accessibility. A lot of people walk to this playground, so a pathway that connects you, to it from both sides, both from Colvin and the Colvin entrance to the park, as well as accessible parking. You can see underneath the bar of the Zoom with the existing parking along the south edge. Would move this without. Yeah, so you can see, you know, we would connect right to the curb, handicap ramping, parking, work with the city on identifying handicap parking spaces right along there for that accessibility.
I don't know how to send it to.
Oh,
That much.
I guess other sort of big things to cover. So again, we talked about some site adjustments. We're also currently working with a few things with the city. So while today we're going to be able to drill down and finalize the actual playground design, there are a couple things that we're still working out with the city. One of those is just sort of design standards for, you know, the bike racks that we're going to include, the benches, the picnic tables, those sorts of things. Working on those final design details. The surfacing, a big thing related to this, we're still working with the city to sort of wrap our brain around the various types of surfacing. So again, that sort of range of discussion, again, this was in the comments. You know, the engineered wood fiber is kind of a city standard, but there's been a lot of discussion about, you know, the inaccessibility of that, the constant maintenance required to keep it in good shape. There has been sort of dipping our toe around the region in a set of the rubberized surfacing, the sort of spongy rubber. So it's good. It's a good, safe product. You know, we're working with the city to explore this. There are some issues with maintenance and durability. When it gets cut, can we repair it before the repairs get really big? And one of the new products on the scene, one we're really excited about, and again, we're continuing the conversation with the city on, is a, I always forget the name of it.
It's a forever long artificial turf.
Forever long artificial turf. So it's basically the same safety and sort of sponginess for fall zone as the rubber, but instead it's a grass surface. There's been a lot of discussions about its durability, but again, the city is very conscientious about making sure whenever we do, we can maintain long term. If it gets spray painted, it can get clean. If it gets lit on fire, it won't light the park on fire. Can we repair it? You know, what are those processes? And that's again where, you know, this becomes so appealing to the city because, you know, this gets damaged, throw a little bit more on, rake it out, sort of back to how things were. The further you go down this line, the more technical expertise you need for those sort of maintenance issues. So again, we're just working through that those conversations with the city. And again, they're asking very good questions, and hopefully we're going to get through that. But we're not going to solve that today here in the room. We want your feedback on the equipment. We're working out the maintenance plan, and then again, Z mentioned, you know, some things like splash pad, or some of the other great ideas like drinking fountains and built shelter structures that are rentable. Those are all great ideas. In the original conception of this project, the focus was put all the money into making a great playground. But I think we can keep all those ideas and we can sort of tee those up as, are they top priorities for Delaware Park to take that next phase in this. But right now what we're going to show you is a $500,000 playground that uses up all the great money that the city and the county have provided for us. So with that, again, just going to start by showing you a few views. If you can follow my little orange arrow. So those are going to be the 3D views that follow, starting with the 2 to 5-year-old equipment. So again, here's the main piece. But again, the thought was create a number of little individual pieces, focusing 2 to 5, sort of furthest away from both roads, up in the corner. Special 2 to 5 swing set area, and then the equipment. Looking at it from the other side, you can see especially positioning the slides on the north side so they stay out of the hot sun. But again, a lot of sort of active equipment to go up to closely. We can circle back on these, but just to sort of give you close-ups of each of the pieces of equipment. again, there's lots of interchangeable stuff. So this is kind of where we'd really love to hear from you in terms of the specifics. But right now, in terms of equipment included, there's the double slide, the slide winder slide. But again, there are other great options in terms of climbing units. We got the Cozy Climber and the Mini Summit Climber. But again, alternatives to that even. Again, we'll be able to come back and talk to any of these slides as we go through them. And then again, panels. There's the gear panel and the bongos and the xylophone fun. So sorry, xylophone. And then, you know, just image panels. But again, lots of other options that we can circle back on. And Ben can describe all the sort of, you know, various sort of tactile, interesting aspects to, you know, different types of children with different types of talents. Just to take us all the way through with the 5 to 12. Again, follow the arrow. So the south side, again, that fully accessible access point into the equipment for the 5 to 12. A number of, this view, we'll circle back to see some of the other individual drawing out once it gets in there. But again, lots of different climbers, slides. And the north side showing us a lot of the slides, a lot of big slides on the north side. And again, that equipment, we've got 3 slides associated with the big piece. But obviously, fire pole. We've got our flywheel spinner. This is the one I'm pretty pumped about. But again, lots of different options in terms of freestanding spinning units that if you've got experience with them, you know, and you found them fun, then please bring that up as we figure these things out. And then again, lots of different climbing options, you know, with all different values associated. The ring tangler, seeker climber, but then lots of different options and steps to get up and down. And then again, additional panels. Not too many panels associated with the 5 to 12, but lots of options. So again, sort of exploring the different aspects. Welcome all the feedback. And then finally, just sort of that sort of full view. Again, from what we had, we're light years ahead, but again, some decisions and some opportunity to sort of modify things and swap things out. But again, those sort of freestanding things, we've got everything in the view on the page at this moment. You could see that sort of turf application with the WeSaw, and again, this is great for ADA accessibility because even the kids that can't get into the seats can go right into the center and have a good time in there. And then the Omni spinner, if any of you guys have been out to MLK Park, got one of those guys in there. But then lots of different swings. Again, we're going from 4 swings to 6. So we're going to be actually going 4 swings to 8 with the kids swing as well. So doubling our swings, all the different seats associated, but then also equipment for the parents. Again, figuring out our standards, but we've got our Olmsted standards here shown in terms of benches and picnic tables associated with, again, not only giving the parents a place to sit in the shade, but also that idea of sort of working the perimeter, a lot of positioning the benches all around the playground so that, you know, you can be with your kids, you can be right there, but not standing in the hot sun. So I guess with that, we can sort of circle back and sort of talk through. If anyone has a specific interest in 2 to 5 or 5 to 12, we can take the conversation there. Or again, that sort of broader conversation of sort of all the equipment and all the pieces and all the other aspects. Yes, sir.
Brian, on your site plan, it seems to indicate that there's planting. Is there going to be any new planting?
So what's shown on the plan is just the existing plant material that we have done some tree plantings recently. Right now, again, that's something that's a nice cheap way to sort of fill in the gaps on the budget. So we've been focused on figuring out the big expensive components, servicing the pads, the equipment. But we certainly are gonna, turn to continuing tree plantings in this area. And we've even talked about, some additional sort of landscape buffering, modifying, going from close cut grass to sort of maybe some of the more naturalized areas to sort of give the space a little bit more of a.
So the site plan reflects what your long-term vision is?
The site plan just, it does not. No, this is bare bones in terms of all these trees are existing trees at this point in time, but lots of opportunity, again, for infill, especially where we're dismantling the existing playground. We're going to be able to fill in these areas, do some regrading, plant out soil, and that's the perfect time to hop in a dozen trees if we're able to. That's something that we as a conservancy staff can do pretty easily achieve it.
I guess my biggest concern in this particular area of the park is closeness to Amherst Street. So to keep the focus on that north end, to kind of buffer those existing play areas that are rectangles or squares, because how children just go willy-nilly when they're near a playground and start running. And I'm just so afraid that they're just going to bolt into the street. So
Yeah.
somehow putting a buffer.
Okay, yeah, so that was part of why, again, we tried to pull, again, with the shade as well, chasing the shade, but also moving it as close as we could without getting into the drip line of the existing trees, move that equipment. But yeah, again, it does sort of leave a open nature to sort of the distance, while it is, as we were stated in our conversations, a safe distance from Amherst Street. The concern is real and totally valid.
I think it's probably a good 1,800 feet on the street from
Yeah,
the proposed playground.
yeah, it should be about 200 feet, actually.
200 feet.
Yeah.
Perhaps a bench or two
Yep.
would give parents some reassurance.
For sure. For sure.
Keep them in front of them.
Yeah, and we can definitely reinforce that. I think even, and Ben, let me know if this is true or I'm just assuming it, but in terms of the design, putting swings on that side, swings kind of like naturally kind of push the kids south. Kids that we typically run around the swings, they're kind of like a, kid cannonball kind of coming through. So it's actually even going to push the activity, and hem it in a little bit. But I think reinforcing that in some way, I think is good enough.
Can you use some kind of landscaping to kind of form the area? Like, I know the outer harbor, a lot of the outer harbor ideas pop in my head when I see this, like some kind of shrubbery or bushes, because it just naturally stay in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and I guess we will reinforce it. I think maybe we'll be able to reflect that better. But so in the excavation process, for both the pathway and the new playground, we're going to have even more fill than we can use in filling in the old sites. So I think some of the discussion was, and again, getting into the detail of regrading, but possibly even just sort of recontouring the slope, so we can just give it a little bit of a rise to the land, and then that'll all be disturbed ground. So that's the perfect time to just add a few shrubs here and there. I don't know that we want to go too thick, because
Yeah, just a couple more
yeah.
things.
Yeah, good point.
Is there a reason that why fencing is not part of this conversation? Like, is it reason price? Like that there can't be a barrier, an actual barrier there? I mean, I have an almost 4-year-old.
Yep.
It can bolt.
Yeah.
And if you create a hill, I mean, that is a barrier, but like that's also a challenge. And then once he gets over that crest, I can't see him anymore.
Right.
So why not a fence?
That's good. That's a good point. Fences, we try not to use them more than we need to. I mean, they are, kind of, they stand out within the landscape. So if we can solve those solutions without fences, so I think we were sort of showing it without, because we felt it was safe, but again, I think we're here to sort of get that feedback. We're feeling, very uncomfortable with those distances. It does become a cost trade-off, so at this point, it would be sort of trade-off and reconfiguring equipment. But again, that's sort of why we're not showing them, is because they're an expensive piece, but we wanted to sort of get that feedback from you guys. How concerned the level was, and sort of how we want to go forward. So here,
I'm concerned.
great.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I used to take him there when my son was younger, and we stopped because of that. Because
Yeah.
like, so we go to the other park on the other side, which near here. So, yeah,
But again, the concern is north.
yes.
Other thoughts?
So I'm one of the ones that answered, you need more shade, like every single question on this survey. So I like the benches under the trees, but I wonder if you give any consideration to getting sunshades like they do in the south, that go up just in the summertime, pole to pole, over especially things like swings where you're standing there and kids want to go for half an hour in the same position, right inside. Would you put some sunshades up?
That's again been a point of contention with the city in terms of the maintenance of those structures as they go up and down. We haven't gotten them to turn the corner on making that an approved component. They definitely do not like roofs. We had to eliminate all roofs from the components on the equipment, but also the sunshade structures. We've talked about them other places, and there's been an apprehension at the city to approve that kind of stuff, saying trees do just a good job. Where the trees can be, I guess, and then like plant a tree, you'll get your sunshade in 5 years. Kind of thing. So, well, again, this is good feedback, and then we can bring back again. So is this a broader concern? I mean, we're trying to create more natural shade, but obviously there's a limit to what that can do. And shade is a huge concern for the equipment, for where the parents are going to be, I guess.
Both, on the days, we just completely skip this playground for most of the summer because it's too much in the sun. The kids get too dehydrated.
Yeah.
And then you walk home and they're just exhausted. So for both kids and parents.
Yeah. Okay. And again, maybe something, because that is sort of a comfort versus a safety concern. That might be something that we sort of tee up for a phase 2, potentially, if we can't get movement to the front on it. And sort of like, see how well the natural shade is, and sort of maybe supplement, I guess.
I was just on the shape and the city, it is a safety concern. We didn't have the sensitivity or something like that, and we didn't have parents. And then you would think of the covered equipment or certain components of the equipment that would be covered, things that hold on, the equipment's life, and that's how the parents see itself, like what would be more important is the cover or the equipment itself.
I'm just doing for that.
There is,
Code
yeah.
has a slating to it.
The sunshades block out 95% of the UV rays. Yes, the less UV rays, the equipment, we definitely bring down. And maybe it could be in the note that architect would offer to take these down for the park, if they have a good shade. We're here based here in Buffalo, it's down the street, we'll send our guys out to help them. I mean, it really takes us an hour to go take them down. So if they did that, maintenance would be very low. And hopefully park to the city park.
Just to the point, was the city's apprehension of coverings purely maintenance, or was it a safety concern of additional climbing and kind of out of bounds play? What was it?
I hadn't heard that. It was specifically due to the maintenance and that might also be a concern. I mean,
Didn't some of the options that we saw have what seem to be permanent overhangs on some of the larger?
Yeah, there are more permanent kind of plastic, steel roofs.
That aren't necessarily up and down.
Yeah.
This is in the options. Yeah, I thought I saw something.
Yeah, I mean, so these would be the sorts of things, like this is in the diagram, but these are things that the city currently has some apprehension about seeing those sorts of roof structures. So it might have been in one of the photos, something focused on the climbing apparatus.
The record subsidies, all of it, I mean, you remember that being in Outer Harbor. So,
State.
that's okay, I was like, so many things keep coming up, okay.
Yeah, so there's Hamburg got its own set of rules, you know, it's just, you know.
That was the best one.
Oh, I know, it's,
There used to be a boat feature there, the sail that was on, or less parts of something.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna continue this conversation with the city on those sorts of sort of extra features. But I think it's pretty important.
It's really pushing the air conditioning.
yes.
Really push for the air
Always
conditioning.
to reach. One of the two articles.
Now, one of the things that came up in the south, as we were doing another one of these playgrounds on the Cass Park, was some sort of blend of multiple surfaces, because I mean, those are really great for accessibility, but not necessarily every corner of this playground needs to be. But again, obviously you can push edge to edge, but sort of as we work through some things that we think about putting more fencing, as opposed to taking out equipment, maybe some blend of surfaces, sort of help us with your budget. Thoughts on that right up front, or just sort of?
It's big chips.
Very good chips.
We have all of them.
Yeah, like we have to go to non-wood chips. So like, we're just not dealing with it. It's in their samples, you know?
Yeah, for sure. All right, no, it's good.
It would probably be better on your swing. Wood chips.
Wood chips.
So
They're from Haiti, Illinois.
Those who get into the.
Yeah, you know, the difficulty is, we were talking that, when you combine those unitary surfaces with unitary fiber, you have to bury that rubber or turf below the wood chips, and you always get that edge. And you can also do the unitary surface like the turf under the swings, and then have the unitary fiber out behind the swings by the north side. It's just to get that lip, you know, but we might have to do that, you know, depending on, what else to do, but. So MLK Park has a problem, right? So it's hard for the park to keep that, those engineered wood chips up against that edge. But it's something you can do for cost, and you know, we have heard over the years too that we have a story with a young child. We were doing rubber in part of the playground with engineered fiber, and we all think, you know, the unitary surface is the way to go. But some kids don't like different experiences than they want. And so they just didn't like the rubber, they preferred the wood chip. So there are some benefits if you do it in the right spot.
I just had a question between the three, because I think we consider the park Four Seasons park where they were in the winter, and so you have a lot more just moisture, standing water, melting snow. You know, in the summer you might just skip a rainy day, but fall through spring, you know, you're probably just going to go through. What surface is the best for water, standing water, and deterioration from that?
You know, with our winters, it starts out as a, you know, foot of packed snow, and you guys sort of take the kids out there, and then it all becomes ice. So it's hard to not have a standing water when it's just kind of melting in the next day. But we've had some mistakes in the past where, you know, the big thing is making sure that the drainage undersurfacing is done correctly. So that way you don't get the standing water, you don't get some ice stuff. So any surface has a positive and exit. If we do it right, even into a fiber will drain properly if we put it out drains. So they all should not be able to have standing water. The water should be permeable, they don't have to be code, and then we gotta get the water out of the play area. We're putting up drain stones where it doesn't sit out. A lot of that is what you don't see.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the things that we were looking at with this site, we got a survey. So if you can see these white lines, those are the 1 foot contours. So it's a pretty flat site for the most, which you all know, just being out there. But we are putting it right on the highest point, even with this shifting it a little bit further south. And as we construct it, we'll be able to kind of, cheat the grade, where instead of, digging out a full foot for that fall zone, dig out 6 inches, build up 6 inches, kind of grade it out. So this will be far superior to the existing playground, or probably any playground in this park, or maybe even in all of Buffalo, just in terms of, again, that sort of things you don't see about how you construct it, putting drain lines in to just sort of get the water out of the playground area into the surrounding landscape, will all be key components of the construction. So this will be a well drained. There really aren't drainage issues here in this location, but we do have some parts of the park, but we deal with cultivation.
So my observations of lots of grandchildren, I would just suggest that the more screens as opposed to billboard things. They don't stay more than drum sites. When they go on and they climb and swing, that should be a focus rather than investing in some of those other things that you handle things.
I agree.
They don't hold their attention very well.
Yeah.
And I think that the money would be better spent on screens and climbing houses.
I would even argue that things that kind of allow for interaction between two kids or a parent on the outside, I think you get more interaction from the bubble where you can, see each other and kind of watch them throughout, as opposed to the panel where it's kind of
Running up and down ladders
6 seconds.
together, climbing together as opposed
things that
to.
engage two
Flipping.
kids.
This imagination table is excellent. That's like,
Yeah, those-
to me, that leads to like imaginative play and like active play, and the kids get games and you can dance with them. Whereas someone's gonna do the bongo for a little bit and then they're gonna leave. Yeah, the imagination table. I think something like
Hold their
that.
attention very.
Not
Okay.
just speaking for kids of different abilities too, sometimes they can't do the finding and screening, they still want to have that social inclusion. So things like the table that do involve that social inclusion. So I will say, even with a child that has mobility differences, the bongo does not contain for that long. But like the gears that really challenge her OT and fine motor skills, things like that, rainbow splitter, like they have to explore more. Those ones are nice. And then obviously, I'm always gonna say that the learning from love that, because again, that also opens conversations between families and like, oh, what's Braille? And then that kind of adds to that inclusive piece without even trying too hard.
Okay, all right, so I think we heard a thumbs up for imagination table and the Braille panel versus some of the others.
I feel like the wheel is a cheap thing to just slap on there, and every kid likes to drive, like that. Yeah, it should be a cheap.
I don't think I've ever seen our son use like an individual hand.
No.
I actually wasn't really aware of what to do with a spinning tic-tac-toes. I think,
You can go up there and pretend to drive.
driving is
Uh-huh.
not.
It's gonna happen
I would
for a
prefer
long time.
Definitely.
Bust that out.
I actually just played the tic-tac-toe panel like a week ago, and every time I tried to turn one of the X's or O's, like all 3 of them spun. And we were both getting so frustrated, and I thought, I don't, it's never worked in like my 40 years of life. I've never been able to get these things to work.
They're after that.
That's great, that's great input.
One thing I want you guys to know about this piece, which is cool, right? Because you're right, you get the square panels. The one thing is we do have to have some barriers. So, instead of having a pipe barrier, you're getting stuck with some of these. But I wanted to point this out. Does anybody have any children that you, like on the autism spectrum? Anybody familiar with that, right? So this one piece here, like all these pieces that you're talking about, swapping those out, totally cool. But I wanted to point out the frame, because I love it, is all the little divots and bumps and ridges and swirls. Kids on the autism spectrum might not really dig climbing and sliding as much as they can sit there and just play with that stuff. And that's their play, right? as they're fun, so that's kind of cool. But even like changing out these panels of different types of styles, that's real easy to do, but I just wanted you to know about that frame, because this thing could be the square, and you wouldn't even know the difference, but it's that frame that we're gonna serve another group of kids. And even if they're not always coming out to the park, they might, if you build it, they will come kind of thing, right? So I just wanted to point that out, that some of the stuff is just, just little things that different kids, different abilities.
All right, I know we had some chatter on the chat. Were there any of the folks on the Zoom that wanted to sort of speak to the points they made? I know Z's got comments written down, but sometimes starts a conversation in the room if anyone wants to add anything who's on Zoom. No pressure, but we'll give you a moment.
Was there a 5 to 11 panel one too? I thought there was another panel page.
Yeah, there were. Wait a second, I've lost track of where I'm at. But there weren't too many panels. I think there were two spots, if I saw correctly. Yeah, and I think these two were the ones included. But again, welcome any thoughts.
So somebody already pointed out that image reach panel, probably not your most favorite thing, right? So if you look at that ring of bell reach panel, the little notes, the blue notes, you pull them up and they fall down and hit that bell and they're different tone. So if you want to swap something like that, something that's sound, or give you some, that might need that audio stimulation. We don't have this in the half size panel, but I love this thing because it's actually a ring sound wheel. So when you turn it, it actually sounds like when you call it. So just for some kids that might need a different activity. And we have that labeled as image reach panel. That was my mistake. We did this for Brian and Z, so that was no fault. But that's a chimes panel. That's like the old school, before we had the cool sensory stimulating panels that we came out with 10 years ago. The chimes are great, but I'll have to admit, I'm gonna find a mistake to make them ring. So I have to admit that they're cool for the sound, but I personally, you might want to consider the ring of bell just because the tone of the cool.
And that was just the sensory, I'll just, we got it step. So it's like that vibration, that sensory, so even though she may not always hear it the same, just that sensory input, that drop, helps ring a bell, reach. So that was.
All right, so ring a bell.
What is the color splash panel?
So just you actually turn it, and then the colors kind of show different rainbow type colors in the spins. And the other side is kind of for the parents. It's kind of a black and white swirl, more of a psychedelic kind of. But so yeah, you spin it, and then one side is the colors kind of do crazy things, so just for that visual stimulation, and the other side just has a kind of spiral that kind of,
And it's like not super easy to spin either, so it makes them kind of get tired.
That's a really cool one.
This guy here?
Yeah, yeah. So like that.
All right.
Also inclusive too.
Yeah.
All right, so color splash and ring a bell sound like. Yeah, I think that's I feel like all of that was happening down here, right? I think that's all active, so that's what will be happening there. Oh, we got a steering wheel there on the wall there.
I think I have a question about how tall this was, when they're grabbing and swinging from, like how tall would you have to be? Because
that's Brian's thing.
I know.
So my first time I rode on that, they have it down in Hamburg Queens Playground, right? The reason Brian and I love this is we're going to be the first to ride it. It's we can grab them easily. It's probably right about 6 feet, right? Where the thing is kind of on an angle, and the cool thing is it might be a little lower. So, but it's between 5 and 6. It's not like 7. It's not about 4. And Brian and I will have to bend our knees, to ride it. But it's awesome because they can hold 5 adults. Like like 5 of us can grab onto that thing, and once you push off, it's on that angle, reel just keeps spinning. So, you know, I have to admit, it's tougher on kids that don't have the upper body strength. So there's a big safety zone around it, so when they go flying, no problem, there's no equipment in the way, you just do tuck and roll, okay? But you're gonna have a lot of fun, no, they won't go flying.
I'll admit, Slinger is not for me. So, if there's something else on there that people are feeling really excited about.
It does look cool, but how would you have to be? It would be kind of expensive.
Yeah, if you have little, I don't know, I don't have kids, so these are all my kids, right? But, how old is this? 7 or 8? You would have to lift them up. Yeah, so if you're a little bit shorter, that's where, and if those kids don't have the upper body space to hold on, it will be hard for them. It gets going.
It's probably really more for like 10 to 12.
Yeah, we would say, you know, like you're eight and up, you know, you'd have to be a bigger kid. So that would be something to consider, guys, if you're concerned about something like that.
It is.
Because I feel like you can be tall and use that entry. It's much more universal.
Here, go back a couple, right, they were looking at the top attorney, and I think the price is pretty close, so it wouldn't, you know, not that you guys have to worry about, that's our job. But the top attorney's cool too, because that platform is like a wheelchair, you know, or children that have mobility issues, or whose mobility devices can get in there easier, they can sit on the deck. And then that does have a speed regulator, so we're not going to have to be able to shoot right on, you know, but it's fun. You can get, you know, 6 kids on that thing, and they can swing together as opposed to everybody having to hang from it. So, and if the kids want to, like they see a little kid in a red shirt with the white stripes, you know, you can lean back and give yourself more of a challenge and do the ice skater thing. Everybody leans back and come in and make it change speed. So that's a cool option for spinning activities. Yeah.
Just what we're thinking.
I think it makes more sense. I think it's more universal for kids also.
Yes.
Sorry. I know you were excited. Just my vote.
Not worry about it.
There's a flywheel spinner in the park in Carolina, and I feel like I can after a few minutes. I don't have the upper body to keep myself on for a while, but most kids don't use it. And even trying to hold my 5-year-old who wants to do it, and it's like
So it's exhausting for parents.
Yeah. It doesn't get used often, but the roundabout thing at Mayor's Park in North Tonawanda is used constantly the entire time.
Well, that's the we go around, right? Yeah, meeting ground there, right?
Yeah. But even just the spinning, you know, we had those things when we were kids. It's the same.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Yep.
Ryan, left side of your picture up there, the brown wheelchair ramp. What is that thing that's bearing to the right? What is that thing with the doors clapping there?
You know, this is so this ramp is only, this deck is only 8 inches high. So, you know, for us to do ramps, all the way to 6 feet, kind of expensive. So that is just a simple landing. So the 2 pans, just a step into so if you don't want to go up the ramp, if you're coming down the climber or this and you just want to run on the deck, so just a simple step. And 2 panels are the maximum distance an opening can be to a climber is 15 inches. None of those 2 panels make it 15 inches. That's a safety code. So that's just a simple step into the deck. And I'd recommend you had some way in, but if we close it all off the panels, you get kids kind of running over and they'll always having to run to the ramp, and we just kind of make it more congested. So I would recommend you kind of keep one spot open. I mean, sometimes we put like a little pod, at least if you want to give them a little something to do, get a pod and step in there, that kind of thing. But there's not a lot of climbers we can do off 8-inch high decks. It's kind of why we just have an opening to give kids a chance to get in there.
So then there are activity panels on either side of that space.
Yeah. I guess what we can't see is what's on that one. It doesn't show up from the other
I
side.
think there's another one of the reach panels, but other than that,
I just had a quick question about that ramp area. Does that only just take you to that platform or activity panels that you don't have access to?
only can't see
Fire or
the real
anything?
panel already.
See the last
So
one?
the ramp,
When somebody said it, like,
does it only take you to the activity panels, like they wouldn't be going to slides, they wouldn't have access to your equipment?
Yeah, it looks like it just stops. If you go up the ramp, like that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the cool part. So number one, the one we can't see, is this the camera? I'm gonna keep plugging.
That is the camera.
Sorry, guys. That's a ring and bell panel already, the one that we can't see. So we actually, the one that everybody kind of likes. So the cool thing I love about this is, anybody been to Billy Wilson Park? So that's the secret climber, that rope climber. So it's a rope climber that connects to this deck and goes to the ground. So kids that might not be able to take the rope all the way up to that 48-inch high deck, you can access it from the ground. You can access it, so it's a bridge between decks, but also a ground level play event. So if we have, you know, limited mobility, we can still interact with our friends on that climber. It kind of wiggles and shakes. So it's a cable climber that we're kind of proved to put on there. So it's kind of like it's a climber slash bridge kind of thing.
Is there an accessible slide feature?
So, you know, one thing that
I
they
know
have.
that it's possible, so there's a transfer area that's not.
So this is our transfer station, right?
Yeah.
And then so the slide on the backside comes down and you're close enough to the transfer steps. Unfortunately, the playground world hasn't developed an accessible slide if you use mobility devices. One of these days they're going to do it where we could be on top, we could clamp our wheels in. The problem is how fast we can go and the impact, so we got to figure that out. They figured out a swing that you can get a wheelchair on just a couple years ago, so that's cool. So the best we can do is that transfer step. You know, it's old ADA stuff, right? So a child can, if they're able to transfer out of the wheelchair, scoots up the steps, goes down the slide, and kind of comes back to the wheelchair. That's the best we can do with slides. Other than a roller slide, which gives you a little bit of tactile experience kind of thing. So that's the most acceptable slide.
Yeah.
Was there any consideration for having either the bar that you hold on to that goes down the track, or like the chair that you sit in that goes down the track? Those seem, my oldest is 9 and he prefers climbing, and the chair one is perfect for like all ages.
Yeah, so that's called the zip cruise, right? Where you have the seat and you also have a pod next to it if you want to double them up. For this, I don't think we saw that in the notes, but it takes up a lot of space. And that one would kind of be a budget issue where it's so wide, Brian, that you got, you know, it's going to be like 20 feet by 40 feet. So it would just be a lot of surfacing. So if we try to do turf, we got a hard time fitting it in the budget. And it also serves, you know, one child. You know, it is cool, right? Because when you have the accessible seat and you get a kid in there, the first time they use it, you know, some of these kids have never fallen through the air. They don't have the body strength or the ankles up. The first scream is a terror. And then by the time they come back, it's a scream of joy. But I love the first time some kids have never been able to fly through the air. But it was something you could do. We would definitely have to kind of blow up the design a little bit. I'm not sure how much you put your little thing on that one, Brian, but it is cool. I would almost say that could be, you know, since I'm here in Buffalo and I bought my company last year, we often fundraise, we can add a zip cruise in the future off to the side. Because it is cool, especially with that seat and stuff.
Yeah. And you can do the engineered one under that if it's like a separate track to save money.
And that's what you mentioned there at the park. I mean, we learned the hard way that you kind of have to extend that unitary surfacing a little bit, because then you have the engine work harder, and then the kids' feet running farther than I thought. But kind of, you know, keeps hitting the wood chips to the rubber or the turf and makes it a bit messy. But you can, so we got to be more strategic about having a row of cables up, you know, rubber, but then you would surround, right? So I think it would be tough to fit it into this phase, but I would love, you know, like I said, I live right here in Buffalo, and you know, I'd love to work with you guys. If you want to help raise money for phase 2, I'll work with you.
Well, yeah, phase 2, we also have other playgrounds. We got 2 other playgrounds in this park that are both, you know, immediately following this one. You know, so we've got a slightly bigger playground going on in Cass Park. It's got a few more bells and whistles, including that big wheel around thing. This was, you know, when the council member, you know, approached us, you know, it was related to, this is probably never going to be the biggest playground in Delaware Park. You know, we've got the Rose Garden playground, that's priority 1. Parkside playground is featured, but that'll be sort of another one. So like, how can we make this one better? Recognizing we're not going to get and everybody wants at this spot.
Gotcha. So the other two are on the table for the other two parks. Like,
Yes, the other two playgrounds in Delaware?
yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Parkside playground is in our 5-year plan currently, which is 2020 to 2024. We haven't caught fundraising fire on that one, but that, you know, in terms of executing this one and planning for the next, Parkside is in this one. So, yeah, well, every note that we get, we'll certainly incorporate as much as we can, but then if it's not going into this one, we'll just file for the next one.
Is the state stuff and John Ryan providing?
No state money, we've got city and county. But yeah, I mean, we've identified a couple things thinking about, you know, the phase 2, which I'm gonna circle back on, you know, related to, you know, do we want a shelter associated with this people could use? There's obviously more pathway work to be done. We've got a lot of people talking about nature play. And like, kind of, we got the woods right nearby, and like, we want to sort of think about some other sort of less active children recreation opportunities, especially with the zoo right nearby. There's a lot of just logic to that. So we've already sort of been gearing up for phase 2. So that's once you do something and you attract a lot of attention, everybody comes out of the woodwork and get involved. So
Is there a photo op?
that's right. That's right. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Brian, will any of the existing equipment be repurposed?
This one I think is so old.
Yeah, we were talking,
But that's a bolt, so yeah.
we were talking, I was talking to some folks about that playground. I joined Architects Landscape Structure 22 years ago, and that playground was old, fees. So there's some safety codes that it wouldn't meet. And then, you know, the liability of Olmsted Parks donating it to somebody or selling it, and like, doesn't meet codes. So you
Short
can,
answer is no.
yeah, I have a hard time getting a short answer, but not that, but in the future, like, that's always a good question though, because especially landscape structure, this stuff will last 50 years, and if you ever take it down, like the South Park, right? All the leaves are gone. Yes, that landscape structure from 1998 somewhere. And it's still great. Now we're not gonna get the new playground, but they're gonna do something cool with that playground. I could donate to somebody and have it stay at a piece of them. So, but yeah, not this one.
The other, thoughts, got a lot of good feedback.
Yeah.
Hey, Ross.
Oh.
We're going back there, right in your office.
Just find it a warm spot.
Yeah. Maybe let's circle back. So,
You encourage the zoo residents to this.
yeah, so I guess I'll summarize, and if people can respond, but we talked about in terms of that sort of freestanding plastic structure in the bottom. What? I think we were talking about the gears and the table for the two in there. So that's question 1, folks on Zoom. So that's Opti gear panel and imagination table on the bottom row. And then on the top row with the 2 panels associated were the pilot panel and the braille panel. Does all sound right in here? So those are panels sets 1, and then with the 5 to 12.
Your imagination, real and
Right?
Yeah.
Pilot was the drive and
Yeah.
Carol was the pilot, the Opti was the gear, and the imagination was the.
And then here we had ring a bell reach panel on 5 to 12, and color splash panel. I think were the 2 we identified out of on the 5 to 12 panel. So,
Was it mentioned that the ring about panel was already gonna be included?
Yeah.
So does that mean that there's
Oh.
another choice?
Yeah.
we got another one.
The one we couldn't find. So we have the ring bell, and then we have each of these already on it. And I think we already established.
All right, so I guess we got an open panel here.
Rain sound, oh, you said there was no room because that's a full.
You know, here's the thing, right? So I was thinking about that. On the 5 and 12, we have 3 of those reach panels, right? We could take one of the reach panels off and replace it with a full-size panel that also provides a lot of sensor stimulation, like the rain sound wheel. Or would you want to move the braille panel over, because then it'd be even above the ground. It's two-sided, by the way. You only see one side. But even the rain sound wheel, you know, that can be played at the ground too. So if we're not a big fan of the image reach panel, or I was not a fan of it, I'm just not a big fan of the time, it's just so old. But being 3, maybe we do something that also provides a lot of, you know, sensory stimulation. It's a full-size panel, so you can't play with it if you use a wheelchair like this, but something like that wheel sticks out and you can still kind of reach it, or their friends can turn it, that kind of stuff. So that might be something to think about is, do you want 3 reach panels or just get a full-size panel? So the color splash and the rain sound, we could, if you guys just list the ones you like, my designer will let me figure it out.
Yeah.
I think the rain sound sounds good.
Okay. So rain sounds, color splash, ring a bell reach. On 5 to 12. You get any feedback from them, or?
The ring of bell already comes with the frame, right? Right, the ring of bell, I'm just thinking like it came in the frame with the pictures, but like the ring of bell is already included.
Yeah, it's already included, yeah.
Part, so that wouldn't even be.
All right, any other thoughts?
It's not clear, so that's a image reach.
Those are great selections. Yeah, they're definitely upgrades. Because that was Lynn also protecting my budget. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'll have to help a little here, but it's gonna be cool, right?
All right. Final thoughts? All right, yeah, so again, yeah, with regard to that, you know, again, want to really call attention to this asterisk. Like we're chugging along, but you know, these are city parks. You know, they're owned by the city. The city, you know, is responsible partner in this process. So these last 2 votes, we're gonna, from this point in time, I feel like we're building consensus. You know, we're gonna go back, figure out some things with regard to how we're dealing with the perimeter, and you know, what is, you know, who's the phase 1? What do we think about the phase 2? How quickly can we get phase 2 to happen? Yeah, again, so we are kind of bumping. We were kind of hoping to be like talking about August into September. Now we're talking about September, October. We really can't afford to slip any further, but you know, I think we're going to be driving real hard to get decisions made by in the coming weeks, so that we can move this into action.
Right. What city committees vote on that?
So there's no more voting. They voted to approve the money. So actually, that is still a process, believe it or not. We've moved this process along as they're dotting the i's and crossing the t's on that. But now it's really just through the Department of Public Works in coordination with the council members, just approving the final design. But there's no more voting. It's really just more responsible party, you know, make decisions.
And so there's nothing else that can be done, a letter, or anything else to help that process? Is there anything else that can be done by us to advocate to support that process moving a little
Well,
faster?
yeah, I think if, you know, we gotta pull this information together, summarize it, we're gonna bring Ben in, potentially bring in the actual installer that does the surfacing. if we really run into some trouble, we might call on the community to sort of speak up and elevate our voices, but, hopefully, we just find ourselves all moving in the same direction.
Is
But
it
we'll
the
keep
council,
posted.
is it the councilman that ultimately pushes the button? So to speak?
I think there's roles for both council and the administration.
You're right.
Yeah, so,
I mean, it's his district, it's his project, it's, does he
Yeah.
push the button?
I don't know, because I don't know that anyone would say they have total control. I mean, the administration, and the Parks Department, has a lot of final say because they're the ones that are responsible, they're the engineers that sign off on things, they're sort of accountable for making smart decisions. Council member, so it's kind of a partnership there. Maybe someone does have a button, I haven't seen it, I guess, that's not gonna answer that. But I think both have a role, and I'm not sure one really can, discount the other. Which is how good government works.
You need a leader.
The council member is the leader, he's the one, who got the money, he's the one sort of stimulating the project, responding to the public, outcry. So, yeah, that's the one, so who's the leader?
Thank you.
Councilman
So
Farrell.
now you know who to send the
You got
letter
one.
to.
Yeah.
Since the second asterisk relies on the first asterisk, have that accomplished first. That's a good milestone, so if there's any issues that can be identified, from April to September.
Yeah, well, yeah, so, I mean, we're, I think, gonna be able to loop back on a lot of, like, the design aspects, but the equipment order is once you order it, 6 months later you get it. Can't make any changes.
I'm referencing that we have noticed pending city approval.
Yep.
So if there's anything that you could ask of the community in that time frame to help the process.
Yeah, but, we really need to be making that order in April, with the idea that, some things can get worked out. but-
So the first district should be June.
Yeah, I guess so. Yes, that is actually, yeah. Detailed design, finalization. Yeah, those are tough. But yeah, so.
We gotta figure out how to play, right? When September, October becomes March, April.
Yeah, no, oh, no.
No,
It's not that.
April's like next month, right? Next month.
Yep, yeah, we got some work to do, so appreciate you guys, showing up here, giving us some clear direction. Final thoughts, Lee?
We've been the only thing here. Family. Okay, so I guess to Brian's point will be, so we're going back and forth with the city on a couple of things. So the servicing, some fencing stuff, and we'll keep everyone in the loop on all these updates. So hopefully, just want to know that this is a first phase project. We work with the funding that we have. We don't want to lose this funding. We want to make the change happen as soon as we can. More future phases to have a second improvement. So let's say we can get shelters and engines this year. There's potential in the future. I don't want anyone to think that this is the end of the world. No, it's not. We'll continue to listen to feedback and also making sure that at the end of the day, we're being very thoughtful of what that part.
If the money's not spent before the end of the city's fiscal year, it's going to be going.
I don't know, but the council members require for the funding and say it has to be installed this year. So we are working with that timeline and keeping in mind that you have to order it by 6 months before in order for it to be installed this year. So like that's the timeline that we're working with. We don't know what will happen. We don't want to find out. So,
Well, yeah, so We are committed to 2023. I think a lot of these are American Rescue Plan funds, and all of those need to be spent by the end of 2024, for sure, but we're not even exploring that. We got a faster timeline. So, yeah, there are restrictions on the money. We're gonna do it this year.
Do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on Zoom, last final chance for now? Thank you.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you.
Bye.